Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Garage, the podcast version of The Garage. Gerald here with you, of course. We're going to be doing a movie review this week. We're going to be talking about the new Osgood Perkins film, The Monkey, based on a short story by Mr. Stephen King. So that's very exciting. As a horror fan, you know I'm ready to talk about that film. And Nick is a bum. He could not be here this week. He's feeling under the weather in all seriousness. So I had to get a guest to come in and fill in for this review because Nick had planned to join me for it. And I don't really know how I feel, but I think it's an upgrade because Nick usually hates horror films. Although I think in a weird way he may have liked this one. Let's say what's up to Brad, my buddy Brad, who does a podcast called Apple TV Plus that released an episode in 2022. So since he hasn't done anything in a few years, I figured I'd bring him over here. Yeah. What's up, man? How are you?
Yeah. I haven't done anything. It's been a while. It's been a while.
Been a minute. I
I'm
use
good.
that joke every time we podcast together. I don't know why. It's never gonna get old for me.
Is Nick really sick, or is the monkey's arm still up?
Monkeys. Well, I was going to say there's probably something going on WWE Raw tonight.
Maybe.
Nick,
I don't know.
Nick, I'm giving you the scold look here. Nah, he I think he actually wanted to see this one because I think he loves shitting on horror films when he talks to me. So he's probably bummed that he didn't get a chance to see it. But again, I don't know. What do you think without talking about the movie quite yet? I mean, I think Nick would probably maybe like this one a little bit.
I don't know. It could go either way. I
Yeah.
think there's parts of it I think Nick could enjoy, but then other parts that he would completely just rail on.
Yeah. But I do think that it also was like kind of satirical and kind of made fun of itself a little bit, which it made fun of a lot of the tropes that he typically hates. So I don't know. I feel like he may have liked that meta aspect of it, but I mean, I don't know. Who knows with that guy? I mean, he didn't like Doom Part 2.
We may never know.
Brad's here. Old man Brad, in all seriousness. Now, you know, Brad and I used to do a podcast together called Apple TV Plus, which is where the joke came from. And I think
we ever really do the podcast?
We did it.
Like 5 episodes.
Hold on now. Don't you dare. We put so much effort into that show. We made a logo and everything. I have a T-shirt even.
You do, yeah.
But we started that show. We started that show like, was it 2022 or 21 or something like that?
Somewhere around there. Because it started as a joke.
Yeah.
In the live stream for The Cure, and we're like, you want to do it? Let's do it.
And everybody's like, do it. And to date, we started 5 years ago, and I think to date we have 6 episodes.
Yeah.
What the hell?
It's a good pace we're on.
But anyway, we're going to be talking about Oz Perkins, the monkey, tonight. But before we do that, Brad, I did want to ask your opinion on the Screen Actors Guild Awards. As we're recording, which is on the Monday after the show, the Oscars are coming up this upcoming Sunday, which will just be a few days after this episode airs initially. And the past Sunday was the SAGAwards. You know, obviously one of the guild bodies, which is made up predominantly of actors or people that are retired actors, you know, work in Hollywood, obviously. And they handed out their awards. Now, they do 6 major film awards, and I wanted to kind of list who won real quick and then kind of ask your opinion. So, for stunt ensemble, it went to The Fall Guy, which I predict. We'll talk about your Wicked affinity. Hang on one second. Brad is a giant. I mean, I love Ariana Grande to the moon, and Brad's got me beat when it comes to Wicked. So we'll talk about that in a second. But The Fall Guy won for stunts, which I predicted, but was also people were a little bit like, I don't know, it might be Doom Part 2, and it ended up going to The Fall Guy, which I think is great.
The movie about stunt guys, full of stunt guys, won the stunt
directed
award.
by a former stunt guy.
Yeah.
That was intended to show.
Out, right?
Yeah. It makes sense that it would win that. And also, I hope it really shines a spotlight on getting a freaking stunt category at the Oscars too, which I think is The Fall Guy could be pivotal for that, to be honest. I mean, that, you know, I hope we get there in the next few years. Other winners on the night for supporting performances were kind of the most boring results because they've been sweeping all season. It was Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain in the actor category for supporting, and Zoe Saldana from Amelia Perez, which is Nick's favorite movie.
Which I've heard is just a fantastic film that everybody should see.
So good. It's such a mind-bending, thought-provoking film. If you're talking about penis to vagina tunes about sex change operations. But other than that, it's kind of misses the mark. But So those two won for supporting.
Bummer I don't have Netflix anymore. I can't watch it. Darn.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're fine. Believe me. For the lead acting performances, we did get a minimal plot twist that I loved, and you know this because you're a friend of mine, but Timothée Chalamet won for Best Actor for A Complete Unknown, which of course is the biopic that Mangold directed that he played Bob Dylan. And then Demi Moore continues her, not sweep because Mikey Madison did win at BAFTA a couple weeks ago, but other than that, Demi Moore's been doing really, really well on the circuit, and she won again for The Substance. And then Best Ensemble, which would essentially be like a kind of mini version of Best Picture, went to Conclave. So hearing these winners and knowing what you know about the status of the race so far, do you think these are going to what do you think is going to translate to the Oscars here? Really, I want to know what you think about lead actress because I'm fucking confused. As we're sitting here, I'm going to be doing my final predictions within 2 or 3 days, and I honestly don't know who to pick for lead actress. It could be Mikey, it could be Demi. I just want to hear as many people's opinion as I can get.
I love Demi. I love The Substance. Just like you, I love horror. I want a horror movie in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So seeing her win all these, I'm all for it. I hope she wins the big award, the Oscar.
I mean, it would be cool. It would be really, really fucking cool, and it would be a giant step forward for genre filmmaking. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it would be.
I mean, she was great in the movie too. There's nothing taken away from that. She was great,
without a doubt. I'm going to do my final predictions, like I said. So, anybody listening to this that's interested in that, I don't know yet, so I can't really tell you. I do think that there's
Wicked should win too.
Hang tight. I told you we'd get to Wicked. You can't stop talking about it. But we're essentially tied right now with Demi Moore and Mikey Madison. They're basically tied based on the award season resume that they have. And then Demi Moore has the added factor of the narrative for her career, which is going to be a boost for her because, I mean, it's hard to refute.
When it comes to the Oscar voters, I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah, I agree.
The young blood and the veteran, a lot of the time, someone who's been there for a while, they could have that advantage when it comes to the voters.
And what's funny about that too, Brad, I was making a joke on this live stream I did last night that it just like dawned on me, and I was like, you know what? If Mikey Madison wins this is basically we're living in The Substance. This is basically like a younger version of Demi Moore would swoop in and get all the praise, So it's like, oh my God, maybe I do want Demi to win. But it's kind of weird that it would be.
Not. Have we seen them in a room together?
I mean, could you imagine if it had been like Margaret Qualley nominated for some other movie and they were up against each other and that was what was happening? That'd be crazy.
But have we seen both of them in a room together?
We have. They were hugging and kissing at the Indie Spirits, and yeah. So yeah.
So they aren't one.
They aren't. So, but I thought that was funny. I think they're both great, and I think they're both deserved. And honestly, Fernando Torres from I'm Still Here, who's in that like number 3 spot, is also really deserving. So like I've been saying, we can't lose. I mean, whoever wins, we can't lose. But to your point, I knew you were going to go with Demi Moore because of the horror angle. But I will also say, and I know people don't like hearing this, but the Academy does not reward horror. Like, especially this kind of horror. Yeah.
But I feel like this is the time. It just feels like the time. Especially, there's been a few years like Hereditary was a big talked about not getting nominated. There's been a few others kind of here and there, but I think this is because it is horror, it's body horror, but there is a lot more to it than just that.
Sure. You're not wrong. And like I said, I would be thrilled.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even if I predict somebody else and she wins, I'm still going to be thrilled because I mean, it's going to be a giant win for the genre. I mean, it's going to be like a huge because that's going to basically be a free pass for Oscar voters in the future. Because I mean, you talk about like what was it like Get Out, Sixth Sense, Silence of the Lambs, like that kind of shit's been nominated in the past, and those are thriller like psychological horror films.
Yeah.
So, but if The Substance wins like a major top of the line award like actress, that's a pass. Like if we gave that horror movie whatever, then we can give the next psychological thriller 12 Oscars. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a rite of passage for the genre, I think.
And I feel like if The Substance, if she wins and we get a body horror that gets big awards, every studio is going to want one.
Oh hell yeah, dude! Hell yeah, yeah. It'll be a big win for genre filmmaking. Absolutely.
So when
it
I
comes
fill out
to
my ballot later this week, I'm
uh-huh.
going to print one out and fill it out. It's just going to be The Substance and Wicked all the way down. So that's
So let's talk about Wicked. Oh my god, I gotta let this guy talk about Wicked, guys. This is unbelievable. In fact, you just want to review that movie tonight. Jesus. Okay, so Wicked was Brad's favorite movie of the year. That was probably non-horror, at least. And I know he loves it.
Shockingly, it was. And so
Yeah,
a lot of people don't believe me.
No, I do. I mean, you've been talking about it since you saw it. Yeah, I thought it was really. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. Like I thought it was really good. I thought I had some flaws with it, namely the runtime, and I've joked around with you about the color grading in the film and some other things, but I thought it was great, especially being a fan of the stage musical. I was concerned because I always am when they turn it into a film, that it doesn't always translate as powerful for me, but it was a good translation to screen. So at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, like we're talking about, Wicked was in the running for ensemble. Ariana was nominated for supporting actress. She's been losing all year to Zoe, and that continued, unfortunately. I really wanted Grande to get something, but she didn't. So now, going to the Oscars, let me just set this up for you, because I know you follow it casually, but the setup right now is, for Best Picture, is Conclave versus Honora. Mm-hmm. Did you see either of those?
I have not seen either of those, no.
Two completely different films, first of all, which is kind of crazy. It's not like they're even in the same wheelhouse. They're vastly different. Conclave is rated PG, and it's a kind of almost like a political drama in a way about replacing the Pope in the Vatican. The whole thing takes place in the Vatican, and they're having a conclave over X number of days trying to select the new Pope. That's what the premise of the movie is.
We might be selecting a new Pope soon.
I know, and people have been sharing different conclave memes and stuff. So, hell of a campaign they got going over there.
Yeah, I know.
Put the Pope in the hospital the week of the Oscars, and then they went ensemble. Something going on here. And then Honora, which I love, aside from Dune Part 2, Honora is my favorite in the mix, and it stands the best chance because it's been winning all these different precursors. I won't bore you with it, but it's got a great resume going into the Oscars. But that's a movie about a sex worker in Jersey, played by Mikey Madison, a former Ghostface, by the way. So there's a little bit of horror representation there if Honora wins. And I actually loved Amber as Ghostface. That was divisive at the time, but I think people are kind of coming around to that. I thought she was hilarious and awesome, and she has that Dewey kill, which is one of the more infamous, in the franchise. I loved her as Ghostface. I really do. What do you think, knowing the two premises? Because those are the top two. The Brutalist is still kind of playing around too a little bit, and it could sneak attack. But it's basically Conclave versus Honora. I'm just, as a kind of like casual bystander, if you had to vote in your office poll, what do you think stands the best chance? What would you pick?
From what I know of the two movies and what I've seen, trailers, clips wise, I feel like Honora would have the edge with what I would think the voters would go for.
I knew I liked you. I was questioning it, but now I'm confident I like you.
And the talk with the Brutalist, I think it could be a dark horse and sneak in.
It could be. The win package for those movies is what's going to tell the story on the night. Which is not going to help anybody that's doing predictions because it's happening. But on the night, you'll know. For some of these below the line technical categories that usually line up with Best Picture, if they start to lean one particular movie's way, then you'll be like, oh, The Brutalist is about to overperform.
Yeah,
watch out.
A lot. Yeah, a lot of the time. And then lately, it feels like we're getting split. You would think that it lines up director, picture, always kind of like land a lot of the times together, but in recent years, it hasn't gone that way.
Yeah, not always.
Like split them.
Yeah. Not always, and if it does split, that probably would be Corbett, the director of The Brutalist, will probably get that over Baker, I would think. Well, we'll see. I mean, as you're listening to this, if you're listening the week it releases, the Oscars will be this Sunday, March 2nd. And, my YouTube channel is basically devoted to award season for the most part, at least this time of year. So I'll be talking about nothing else for the next couple of weeks and reacting to it and probably flipping out one way or the other. As long as Amelia Perez loses, I'm fine. I mean, basically, that's kind of where I am.
When Wicked wins, I will be texting you furiously.
I want to tell you that Wicked is I'm 99% confident that Wicked is going to win production design and costume design this year. Now, those two are locked in for Wicked. However, it got 10 nominations. So what else is it going to win? Honestly, I don't know if it can win anything else, which I know you don't want to hear that. Makeup's going to go to the substance.
It's the popular pick that people would get behind. They were like, "Oh, I love Wicked. Oh, yes." It's the one that would bring people in to watch or to push for. I don't expect it to win the big awards at all, but
yeah, I'm thinking 2, maybe 3. But I also thought that it was really strong for sound, which it's nominated for, which could have been its 3rd. Even though and you're going to probably scoff at this, but even though I definitely think Dune should win that, but Wicked is in the mix for best sound. So
we won't get on the whole Dune train.
I know, dude. You guys are
Part
insane.
1 was better, people. Part 1 was better.
The Golden P voters knew what was up. And that was not me, except for one ballot. So I need to point that out, because if you watch the stream, Brad and my friend Nick were,
one ballot that he put in 250 times.
Exactly. That's what I mean. What do you mean? Okay, so we'll see. I mean, the Oscars are coming up this Sunday. You going to watch it, man?
Oh, I always watch the Oscars. Even if I haven't seen the movies, my wife and I, it's like a thing. We'll fill out a ballot and we'll watch. Our ballots always suck, but you know what? We have fun with it.
Naturally.
We'll see. Year, with the slap. See if we can get something that shocks us.
Oh my God, yeah. Conan O'Brien's hosting this year, so that'll be awesome. He's the GOAT. So,
yeah, I'm excited. I always watch the Oscars, so
cool, man. So we'll check it out, and like I said, I won't shut up about it for a little while at least, and I got my fingers crossed for my predictions when I decide to make them final, which will probably be this Thursday. So it'll be locked in. We'll see how it goes, but I want to beat.
Put your focus to the Chainsaw Awards right after that.
I'm going to do that. I want to cover that with you, actually. I want to cover that. Right. I got to figure out how to watch it, though, because I think I told you this, but my Shudder subscription with Prime, I can't watch it live.
Oh, okay.
So I might. Yeah, when is that? When do they do those awards?
Well, last year they switched it to October. It used to be in May, but I think they're pushing it towards the end of the year now.
So we got time
with the season.
Sure, yeah. But is it horror movies that were released up until that October, or is it like the previous year's horror movies? Do you know?
How'd they do it last year? I think it was some of that year.
Okay, so it's not like a calendar year. It's like 12-month period from whatever to whatever. Okay, all right. Yeah, I would love to cover that too, because I don't know if I'm going to do the Razzies. Like somebody asked me about that. I don't know. I don't really get it. I want to do the award shows. I'm like passionate about the movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I mean, you can mention. I don't even know all the movies that are nominated for Razzies. Most of them are probably movies that I love.
Yeah, knowing you, I'm almost positive you own all of them. I know Joker. I know Joker Fully a Poo Poo got nominated for quite a few this year.
Oh, that one. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Okay, so
that one's on my list not to ever watch unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah, I mean, it was bold, but man, it was so disappointing. It really was. Okay. Anyway, we don't have to get into that. But yeah, I don't think you're missing too much. Let's talk about The Monkey. So that's our awards discussion for this episode. Thanks for entertaining me, Brad. And maybe after the Oscars, you can pop in on my live stream and tell me how happy you are that Wicked won whatever it won. So talk a little
or I
more
could pop in and say it was rigged because Wicked didn't win.
Dude, part 2 won here. Gerald's rigged all of Hollywood. It didn't stop with the golden piece. All right, so let's talk about the monkey from Oz Perkins. Brad, every episode, usually Nick, but he's not here. So whoever's doing it with me, we give our scores out of 10 up front. We have not discussed it with each other yet. It's what we call the early score reveal, sir.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score and then I never score. It's not fair.
But I am going to score.
Alrighty. Let me get mine out here.
You got like you guys have like your score is a Fortnite card.
Yes. So 14. Okay. Out of 10, I'll count us in, man. Show it to the camera. Say it for the audio audience. Here we go. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
The monkey. 3, 2, 1. Looky.
An 8 out of 10 for me.
7 out of 10 for me. That's a beautiful 8, by the way. Show me that again.
Okay.
My God. Did you do that with a pencil?
I did.
That's nice.
It's all those years at art school really paid off.
What is that, number 2? All right. So 7 out of 10 from me, 8 out of 10 from you, which gives
Quick
us
math.
a 7.5. Yeah,
There you
exactly. That was quick. I did really have to stop for a second. A 7.5 overall on the monkey. So let's just do a few minutes spoiler free, and then we'll go crazy and talk about whatever you want to talk about. So spoiler free, Brad, you're the guest. Why did you give this thing an 8? How did it hit with you, man?
It hit everywhere it needed to. This movie is just quirky. It's goofy. It's bloody as can be, and it checked all the boxes that Brad loves. Like I like stupid humor. I like weirdness, and the over the top kills in this just like hit me right in all the feels.
Yeah.
And I loved it. As I think I put on my letterbox, this is what if you took the Wonder Years and Final Destination and put them together into a quirky little movie. This is what you'll get.
I didn't see that. That's actually a great comparison. I have also been finding myself going back to Final Destination in terms, especially when you're talking about the kills in the movie.
Yes.
Maybe not necessarily the story or whatever, but the kills for sure are very Final Destination-esque. We'll talk about it on the spoiler side, but generally speaking, what I loved about it is that it just was so unapologetically like silly. Like
it's like this is what we're gonna be.
Right.
Take it or leave it.
And I think I like that more, knowing that Oz just came off of Long Legs, which is the opposite, very dark and dreary and serious, and the tone is like,
but
ominous.
It still had, even Long Legs, it still had a odd quirkiness to it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Happy Birthday to Me, like the Happy Birthday songs and everything else. Like there was oddity. Just like this one, you have the Oz Perkins quirkiness to it.
Yeah.
We'll kind of dig into that a little bit when we
without a doubt.
Spoil it.
I mean, without a doubt. I think that the feeling and look of this film as a Perkins film, which is really I think that's why I like it. Though is what I'm saying, because what do you have? You had the Blackcoat's daughter, the pretty thing that lives in the house, Long Legs. Unless I'm forgetting something, that might be it,
Gretel and Hansel.
Oh yeah, Hansel and Gretel, yeah. But you know what I mean? Those are all very ominous and dark, not, at least not intentionally funny, I mean, the Nicolas Cage kind of batshit crazy character is that's a Nicolas Cage thing, I think, more than an Oz Perkins thing. Even though I'm sure, he directed him to play the character, a certain way, or the script or whatever, but I just really liked it.
After seeing this, and you think about okay, how much of it was Cage or him? And then when I told you earlier before we started recording that Oz Perkins was in a movie called Dead and Breakfast, where he's a main part of the movie, and it's a weird, quirky comedy musical zombie movie. So I was like, oh, this kind of checks out now. I had no idea that he was like this.
Right.
But yeah, all those other movies are dark and dreary and atmosphere and everything else.
And the tone of this movie when you were seeing the trailers and stuff too, and like the promotional stuff, I knew that it was going to be like over the top, like we mentioned, Final Destination. Like I kind of still had that sense. Like it's not like I was surprised by that stuff when I saw it, but I will say that I don't at least for me, the marketing didn't give anything away to where I would have known that this was a straight up horror comedy without that serious tone. Like I still thought, like the trailers made it look like it still had some of those elements of Long Legs and those types of films, but really it does. I mean, it doesn't, in my opinion. It's more of it might kind of look similar, the way he films certain scenes and stuff, but we're going to get into it on the spoiler side because I don't want to spoil. I want to be careful not to spoil anything about what I'm talking about.
The trailers did not lead anybody to think this was a comedy at all.
Right.
Especially the type of comedy that you get in this movie.
Yeah, for sure. So we both liked it. By the way, are you surprised? I've seen some kind of divisive reviews of it, which I was like, I saw it early, so there were like hardly any reviews at all when I went to see it. And I loved it. And then like a week later, reviews started coming out, and I was like, people don't like this? Like our friends at In Session hated it. I'm like, I don't know. I just didn't expect people to like hate it. Because I thought it was good. I thought it was fun.
Quite a few of those reviews of like it just didn't hit with them. When I came out of the theater, there were only a few other people in the theater, the screening I went to, and when I came out, two of the people I had talked to before we went in, and they were there, and I was like, "Oh, so what did you think?" And they both looked at me, and the girl looked at me and goes, "I hated it." She's like, "I hated every minute of this movie." And the guy's like, it was odd, but I kind of liked it. He's like, I didn't love it. And I was like, oh man. I was like, I love this movie so much.
Well, the thing with, I'll tell you what, let's do it on the spoiler side. So I'm not sure what we're going to insert here because this is like the first official new version of the podcast. So Dan, have fun. I don't know what Dan's going to do here, but Dan will run some type of break. And what were you going to say? Go ahead, Brad. Tell him.
No, I did a little tap. I was like, Dan.
He loves taking that shit out. That's perfect. So Dan, do whatever you're going to do, and then when we come back, we will be into spoilers for The Monkey. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are talking about The Monkey from Osgood Perkins, and we're going to be spoiling it going forward, or at least we could be. So we're going to be talking about the kills, the characters, whatever comes up in the conversation in the next 20 minutes or so. So if you do not want to be spoiled for The Monkey and you haven't seen it yet, make sure you skip the rest of this episode and come back to it after you see it. Brad, one thing I was going to say as we kind of lead into whatever you want to talk about here is if you think about it, if you really, really think about it, and I'm not saying it's not possible, okay? I realize that I think that it is possible. I'll be interested to see the next time it happens. But in my opinion, if you think about it, how difficult in 2025 and now, we're present day, is it to make a possessed doll or toy movie not cheesy? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, what would a filmmaker have to do to make it genuinely scary like it was in the 80s with like Child's Play to people that were seeing that for the first time? Do you know what I mean?
Even Child's Play had cheese to it.
Sure.
It's not like it was super serious.
Sure. I mean, I think James Wan tried to it was James Wan with Annabelle, right? I think.
Yeah.
Or he was maybe a producer, but I mean,
he was, James Wan was a producer on this, so.
I know. Yeah. But I think, I guess why I get kind of like, why are people using that as a critique of the film? Because I feel like that was obviously, you have to do that. Like, I mean, just the idea of a toy monkey being in control of essentially playing God, essentially. I mean, really, and killing whoever he wants based on the banging his drum is a premise that is absolutely outlandish, silly, unbelievable, stupid. You know what I mean? So obviously you have to play to that, knowing that the audience is going to know that. Do you know what I mean? So what are you going to do? You're going to make them laugh. You're going to give them over to the top kills that we see in this movie that would never happen in real life. Do you know what I mean? But it's going to be like it's going to be visually pleasing to you if you're a horror fan.
It,
Like, oh shit, you know.
and it's
So
one of
I
those,
think it was the right thing to do.
a monkey that is, you know, supernaturally killing people. I kind of want over the top kills that I
Right.
feel like this monkey with a drum, that's what it would do. Would be like, it's got to be over the top. It can't just
Right.
be. I mean, you know, someone gets shot and they explode, not just they get shot with a shotgun. Their whole body just disintegrates.
Yeah, same thing with the swimming pool scene when
The
she hits the
swimming
pool.
pool scene was awesome. I verbally went out and went, holy shit.
It was so good, man.
Because I wasn't expecting it. I thought she was going to dive into the pool and just like, you know, start jerking and get electrocuted.
Right.
But the way she just hits and explodes, and he's like, "Oh my god, it's her leg!" And is that it?
It's so good, and he doubles down on it because you know you have that end scene with the bus full of cheerleaders and
oh yes, yeah,
I mean, so it was just like constantly like that one was crazy, but watch this one, you know, and it kind of like the whole movie kind of plays out like that.
I think they kind of ramped up because it started the whole beginning scene with Adam Scott where it's almost like I felt like it was like a Gremlins type of thing where, you know, he got this at some pawn shop and now it's like, I need to bring this back. They're like, we don't return toys, but just the way that guy dies. Yeah, don't call it a toy. And the way that guy dies, it just kind of set up, okay, this is kind of how we're going to go. This is kind of oddball. And the kill was just kind of silly fun. The way that it just like chain reacted.
Yeah. And did you notice too how the kills got increasingly more like visibly violent to the audience? Like the first one with what you're talking about with Adam Scott and the pawn shop owner, the babysitter at the Japanese restaurant may have been the second one, unless I'm forgetting one.
The babysitter where you saw it coming. You're like,
oh for sure.
What's going to happen here? And just the way like she slowly just turns her to look at him and her head just slides and falls down onto the grill. And I'm like, oh.
Right. But as we're watching it as the viewer, though, I think Oz Perkins specifically kind of held back a little bit on those kills, at least in terms of like the blood and gore and like what you saw. Do you know what I mean?
It really ramped up with the kind of, I guess aunt or stepmom when her face went on fire and she ran.
Oh my god, that may have been my favorite actually, because it was like, what are we gonna do, this lady? You know what I mean? Her head's on fire. She stepped in the bucket of fucking on her way out the door, and then she runs into a real estate pole and impales her skull or whatever. So that was kind of what I'm talking about. But as we're going on from there, because then you got the pool scene that we're talking about, the shotgun body explosion, the bees into the dude's mouth.
You end with the bowling ball.
Which they had referenced earlier in the film, which I thought was cool. So my reservation, I will see if you have any. I mean, obviously we liked it. We gave it an 8 and a 7. But I mean, my reservations about the film was I wish it had kept that kind of childlike naivety throughout the whole thing. Like once we leave the young boy actor who played the twins, it was the same dude, which by the way, that was a great performance because they were two completely different personalities. One was basically a bully and one was like a shy nerd, you know?
Yeah, and the one kid was like, I hope you die. I was shocked that mom died so soon in the movie. Yeah. I was not expecting, because who was it? She played She-Hulk. Now I can't think of her name.
Yeah, Tatiana. What's her last name?
Maslany?
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised that she died so soon into the film.
Me too. Me too. She's she's kind of the A-list for this movie, so I was a bit surprised by that too. And was she Orphan Black, right? Was that her on that TV show, Orphan Black, I think? I don't know if you have her Letterboxd in front of you, but I think that was her too. But she's a great actress, and I heard that she's the star of his next film called Keeper. So they are gonna be collaborating together again. But I was also surprised by that. But Adam Scott was obviously the father, right, from before. Is that the way you took that too? Yeah, me too. So that was, his wife, and she was the widow or whatever, and she had that very like macabre like viewpoint on life where she's just like straight up with these kids, like everybody dies, like, sorry kids, it sucks, but that's what's gonna happen. And they're like 12. You know what I mean? So it's like
the way she dies was I wasn't expecting it, where it's just like bleeding from her eyes and her face, and just like
yeah, that was a pretty haunting image. That was probably the one, which I guess would be a kill because the monkey technically was activated for that too. So
yeah, because the one brother wanted the other brother to die, but the monkey decided to come
doesn't take requests. I love when he's like, we don't take requests. Yeah. But that was what I was going to say. Was that was the one kill that I feel like was on that borderline of like what we would have seen in something like Longlegs, where it was like very like kind of a scarier kill and like a more personal kill. You know what I mean? And a little more believable about it being an aneurysm and all that stuff. And the fact that you had connected to her as their mom too. I feel like, in other words, I think that kill purposefully, and of course I don't know, but I think that one purposefully was different from the rest. That one was a much more like intimate, personal kind of like.
Well, yeah, it was so you could set up the bully twin to kind of like change and be like, this is fucked up shit. I'm going to go to a dark place, and he just kind of secludes himself in this town,
right,
waiting for the monkey to come back, because they throw it down a well, but they're like, it's probably not going to stay there.
Yeah, and he essentially from that point forward blames the other brother for killing their mom, or using the monkey to kill the mom, whatever. And basically from that point for the next like 20 years, he dedicates his life to like basically coming up with this elaborate plot to kill his brother. So that's where I was going to say where my reservations with the film were like, we had the slapsticky over the top kills throughout the movie, but there was like a weird kind of shift in, I don't know if tone's the right word, but like there was a weird shift in like vibes in the movie. Like when it was the younger version of the twins, which was actually a really big chunk of the film that I wasn't expecting. It was like the whole first half of the movie was them as kids.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff I loved, because that gave me like kind of like the Stranger Things vibes. You said Wonder Years, mixed with that Final Destination stuff. But then when we get to him as an adult, and he has a kid that's essentially the same age as he was in the first half of the movie, it got a little too like, oh, okay, we're trying to get away from just this kind of silliness that we set up in the beginning. And I'm not saying that I disliked it even. It was just like a weird, like that's the best way I can describe it, is that the vibes around the story and around the narrative changed for me, but the kills and the over the top stuff was still there. Does that make sense? Like the setting kind of changed.
Yeah. I mean, you still did have some of that oddball. I mean, you had Elijah Wood's character.
Yeah, and Oz is the uncle too. It was fucking hilarious.
The uncle he was great.
That was great. It was so good.
But yeah, I can see that, because when the twins grow up, now it's played, Theo James plays the twins, and their characters did get a little more serious, because he's the one, he has the son, but it's very like a strange, like he doesn't want to have the son, I see him like once a year, and his ex-wife,
the kid's mom,
Elijah Wood, they're gonna adopt him, so you get one last weekend with him. They're supposed to go to some, I guess it's a horror amusement park. But they have to go home because Aunt dies.
Oh my god, that was crazy, dude. That was the craziest shit. I don't know. I just felt like I was really kind of connected to the younger version, really, and like whenever this kind of like detachment from like believability, you have to suspend disbelief in a lot of horror movies. Don't get me wrong, but when that element exists and you have to do that to be able to enjoy the movie, which I feel like is obviously the case with the monkey, it's always easier for me when it's, either a child or a character that is otherwise kind of like doesn't know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah, it's
if the
more
movie,
fantasy that way.
yeah, if the movie's like got a POV or being told through like a 12-year-old's eyes, and they don't know the world, they don't know how things work, then if that's our narrator to the film, maybe it's an unreliable narrator, but we're seeing it the way they see it. So if they think their toy kills people, that's what they think. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I thought maybe and I'm not trying to rewrite the movie or whatever because I liked it, but I think that if the movie had played out with them as children somehow, and we get to our climax in that era, and we find out that the monkey isn't actually killing people, and that something else is happening, and they just thought that it was the monkey because of, how kids think, the imagination. That's what I mean. But then when you shift to the, like you said, the serious kind of family stuff with his son, and like, that was harder for me to connect to because we didn't get any time spent with that other than just like that one scene with Elijah Wood, basically, and then a couple car rides with the kid. And I
Yeah, and
never
it was
felt like a bond really with those two characters,
there wasn't really a bond. I mean, with any of the characters in general. So
hmm
the kids, you could tell like the kids loved mom,
hmm
absolutely loved mom, because there was a whole after the funeral when the babysitter dies and they're out in the swing, and then she's like, "Let's go dancing."
hmm
Basically, she turns it into like a fun day. You
Right.
see that connection with the family. And when she dies, that's where it made it more serious. And then when you
hmm
jump forward, there isn't any of that because he's not connected with his kid. His brother is off hidden somewhere. Who knows where he is? Got
Right.
quirky aunt
Planning
and
his
uncle
revenge.
who die. Yeah. So it I can see where you're coming from because it is definitely much more disconnected with the characters compared to when they were younger, where there was the family dynamic where they were closer. Except for the brothers. They weren't very close. But there was, as the family as a whole, like mom was the glue, basically, that kept them together.
Okay, yeah, and one thing I wanted to ask you about too, Brad, which was in that first half of the movie at the funeral, the
Mhm.
fucking priest played by Nico Del Rio, the young kid that comes out to do the services. I was fucking dying during that. Like that was
So
literally the
funny.
best. Oh my god, the best delivery. Uh, I mean, if you're listening to this version of the podcast, hopefully you've seen the movie. But basically, he's like a rookie priest, is how he's referred to on the title card, and he's like this young, newly ordained priest who almost is like a stoner almost, and he
Almost, yeah.
comes and he comes up to the podium and he's just like, "Oh shit," because everybody's so sad, and like he doesn't know what to say, and just a very like out of place character that was obviously inserted for like comic relief, but uh, he just cracked me up, man. That was such a good scene, and then I think we saw him again one more time, and he did the same kind of
Yeah.
shtick.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was awesome in it. I wanted to shout him out.
And,
That Nico Del Rio. Let me click on his. Yeah, I mean,
and
this is only his fourth film, so he hasn't done a lot of stuff, but he was hilarious.
I think it's just part of what I love that it went, it knew what it was, it knew what it wanted to be. It was like, this is what I want this movie to be, and I'm just gonna go all for it.
Mm,
And like I told you earlier, I didn't know until today that Oz Perkins was in Dead and Breakfast, which is very similar tone where it's goofy, it's silly. There's
mm.
zombies coming after people, and in the middle of it, they break out in like hillbilly country songs and sing, and you're just like, what is going on right now?
Right,
I love this
right.
movie, and I didn't know he was the main like baddie in the movie until today, and I was like, oh my gosh, this
That's cool.
checks out for the tone of the monkey
That's
because
cool.
they kind of go togetger.
Did you read the short story? Do you have any familiarity with it?
No,
No.
I don't read
Me.
books.
Yeah, all right. Books in 2025. What are you, crazy? Who has time for that? Um, I haven't either. I have read a lot of Stephen King stuff, but I've never read this one. I had heard that it's very different, but
I've seen
it does have
Monkey Shines, many years ago, but
yeah, it does have Stephen King's stamp of approval. I mean, he's been praising it on social media and stuff, and I think he may have actually been a producer, or he was involved in it in some way, because his name's on some of the posters and stuff. So obviously he signed off on that. But I liked it, and we can give our final thoughts. And I did want to ask you what your favorite kill in the movie was too. But and if there's anything you want to talk about that we haven't talked about, please bring it up. But I liked it. The only thing is I wish, not necessarily even that we stayed with them as 12 or 13-year-olds, but that we just kept that kind of mysterious, maybe this is real, maybe this isn't real kind of thing, as opposed to being like, this is real. Here's the adult versions of these two fucked up kids that grew up without a mom because of this whatever toy or whatever. And, in other words, we were told that, and that was what we had to kind of go with. Whereas in the first half of the movie, as somebody who generally feels this way when the movie's told through the eyes of a kid, I take it with a grain of salt. And, it could be, it could not be. And I love that element and the silliness kind of around it, because then it's so much easier to explain to me, even though I'm suspending disbelief. It's easier for me to go, okay, well, that monkey's not doing that. This is a 12-year-old kid who has a crazy imagination. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of explain it away that way. So I just wish it kind of kept that same vibe.
And like I said, it had more of a connection with the characters than in the second one.
For sure.
The second half. But I wish the other brother would have came into the second half a little more and not made it very mysterious of like who's making these phone calls and who's.
Yeah, it was a really elaborate, it was it seemed like a really unnecessary plot. Like, I mean, you didn't need, what I'm saying? Like, if you wanted your brother dead, like, you didn't have to kill 50 people or whatever. Just try to hit it on roulette. You know what I mean?
Love the way he died with the bowling ball smashed into his face, and the bowling ball has mom's name on it.
Great callback.
Just like the eyeball.
Great callback. What'd you think about the last 10 or 15 minutes when everything kind of, I thought there was a little bit too much exposition dump there, with the brother kind of explaining everything with the a
little bit. Yeah.
We didn't need that.
I think it was because they kept him kind of in the dark for so long. I think if he would have came in earlier, we could have maybe just dumped a few pieces here and there along the way instead of like, oh, here it all is. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, now we're going to kill him.
Yeah.
He's finally kind of getting what he wants, I guess, or what they I don't know.
Before I ask you about something specific in the last act, let me ask you what your favorite kill in the movie was. There were several. I didn't count them all and write them down, but there was a bunch.
There were a bunch, and it's hard because the pool was definitely one that
was good
up there because I didn't expect it. I wasn't expecting her to explode.
She literally just touched the water and just fucking dissipated into the air.
When the realtor lady opens the door, I didn't expect her to explode. There was a lot of explosion.
There was. And then they do that montage too. Remember that montage of all the people that he had killed trying to get to his brother, and they kind of showed quickly, and they had that one guy that his face got steamed, burned to death from the espresso machine. And they showed his skin melting off of his head and whatever. There was a few others in that montage too, but there was a lot of this would be one that the kill count would have a field day with, if they ever do this on the kill count.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's probably at least 20 kills in this.
Between the pool and probably the aunt getting the face burned, running into the pole, impaling her face into the pole, just because that scene just goes on for a bit, and the way it ends, you're just like, oh, damn.
Yeah. That's it for me. That's mine, actually, because that was just so inventive as a kill, which is really, people don't realize is really hard to do in the horror genre. I mean, what hasn't been used as a murder weapon or whatever? You know what I mean? It's really hard to come up with original stuff. So what he did there is we've seen, people catch on fire and heads on fire. I mean, you mentioned Hereditary earlier, it's even in that movie recently.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've seen that. So he does that trope where it's like, oh, okay, she's going to die because her face is on fire or whatever, and then it just kind of becomes increasingly more like Benny Hill slapstick, where she's like going down the porch, she gets her foot stuck in a bucket, and then she's trying to shake the bucket off, and she ends up, running into a damn sign that stabs her in the face, So that would probably be my favorite because it went from like boring horror trope to like Benny Hill to like, oh shit, that's fucking brutal, like it was like really
it had
inventive in that way. It had layers to it,
It had a lot of I think that's why we mentioned Final Destination, because there were like those pieces that just built up of like chain reactions. This happens to this happen. Even when the girl with the pool, you have like, oh, here's water running here, and then the cord and the electricity, and you just think, oh, she's just gonna get shocked, but then she dives, and it's just like, just the way that it just happens. It's like a bomb. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was good, man. It's a good time. What I would tell people, again, if you listen to this, I hope you've seen it, but what I would tell people is just expect silliness. I mean, expect like not previous Oz Perkins. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I liked it, is because I really expected something like we normally get from him, which is frankly a dark, muted, kind of atmospheric, slow burn. I mean, really, that's what he is known for, honestly. And he does a great job at that, but this is something different. This is, quick. It's in and out. It's, what was it, like 98 minutes? So it's an hour and a half.
It's short, quick. It doesn't hang around too long. It gets to the kills and just keeps, all right, let's get to the next one, and just kind of goes. And I agree. It flew by.
I agree, and that's another reason why I loved it.
I look forward to seeing it again, and I think his next movie. Did you stay to the end to see the teaser for Keeper?
I did. I didn't know what was going on, but I saw it, and then I kind of Googled it after. But
I didn't really know what was going on either. But I feel like it might end up being darker, but still bloody, the way it kind of played out in that teaser. But I mean, you got like,
I got a
60
funny
seconds,
story
so
for you.
It's not.
Yeah, right. I got a funny story for you and a little anecdote about this. So when I went to see this a couple weeks ago, it was like an advanced screening that Neon like invited some of us to. And I told my wife, I was like, I know it's late, I know it's a school night or whatever, but I really want to see this because it's Oz Perkins and like it's a horror movie. I got to see it. Can I go? You got to ask my wife's permission for all this, of course. And she's just like looking at me with like this blank stare, like, yeah, I don't care. And, I'm like, well, Oz Perkins is going to be there for like a Q&A. I got to go, like trying to convince her. And she's like, I don't care, like whatever. And then I'm like, you know who Oz Perkins is, right? she's like, yeah. And then she obviously didn't know. And I'm like, it's Anthony Perkins' son.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, okay. And I go, you know who Anthony Perkins is, right? And she goes, yeah, he was Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, right? And I go, no. Maybe you need to go to the Q&A. That's Anthony Hopkins, all right? And then I had to like lay it out for her. So, but yeah, so I thought that was funny when I went. I'll never forget that from going to see this movie, having to explain to my wife who Anthony Perkins was from Psycho. But yeah, I like this thing. I think you definitely need to know it's a horror comedy. If you're a fan of Oz Perkins, oddly, like if you really, really like his style of filmmaking, oddly, you might not like this because to me, it's very different. I think it does have some of those artistic, like experimental shots still that are really beautiful cinematography and that kind of thing. But it's just like such a frankly dumb story that we're not used to getting from him. Look at it
like this. If you loved Longlegs and Nicolas Cage's kind of odd quirkiness, you get a whole movie of this oddballness.
Right.
But then you add in, I'll just go because James Wan was a producer on it. The police station scene in that movie where you're just like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to happen when you get your kills.
Yeah,
you're going to be like, what?
I will say, and you probably noticed this too as a horror kind of aficionado, but I will say I was a little bummed at some of the CGI blood stuff. I feel like, I feel like Neon and Oz Perkins can get enough money to do some practical stuff there. So I was bummed about some of that. That was obvious, at least on the big screen, it was obvious, but.
Yeah,
I mean, whatever.
especially the cheerleaders.
Critique.
The cheerleaders at the although when you got the cheerleaders earlier when they're cheering that somebody died,
classic.
I about lost it in the theater.
Classic.
I was like, this is so good.
That's what I mean, though. That's why if it had been from the child's POV, that kind of stuff was like very surrealistic and very like, is this actually what the 12-year-old sees, or is this actually them cheering? You know what I mean? Like it had that element where you could question it. But when it shifted to the adults is when it lost me a little bit.
After I got out, I think I texted you and I was like, this is like a big budget Tubi movie, and I loved every second of it.
That's good. That's a good comparison, actually. That actually is kind of what it is, honestly. With a marquee name filmmaker. And I mean, yeah, that's what it is. I wanted to ask you real quick before we wrap up, because we haven't talked about it yet. What did you think of the Bumblebee death at the end?
Oh, almost forgot about that one. That
was intense. I also didn't get it, though.
Yeah,
did you get it? Like, why would they fly into his mouth like that?
Chewing out of his face.
Yeah, that was intense. But why would they fly into his... Was there something I missed there, or is that just because it's just supposed to be crazy?
I think it was just supposed to be crazy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So there's a swarm of bees. Anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about for some reason, there's a swarm of bees that find their way into this car where
they bust
Theo
open
James is
the windshield, so there's a hole.
Right, they get in through the hole in the windshield. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but they fly straight into his mouth.
And he did really good with that in this movie, because we were talking about it with the swimming pool, and obviously the elaborate one with the ant running into the pole. Like he did that where, as a horror fan, even especially if you were just a general audience member, but as a horror fan, you go, "Oh, okay, these bees are going to get into the car, and the dude's going to be trapped, and they're going to sting him to death or whatever." But that's not what he does. He does like that times 1,000. Do you know what I mean?
No, they all fly into his mouth, and they chew their way out of his face.
Right. Exactly. But do you see what I mean? How he did that, though, where he set up these kind of like, you thought you knew what was going to, you said it about the pool, you thought she was going to get electrocuted and fry or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she ends up exploding before you have time to realize that, that's not what happened.
It's the same with the gun in the closet when they open the door and you see it come, and you're like, okay, she's going to get shot. But no, she explodes and a finger lands in his mouth and
his blood all over the drapes and shit. Yeah, no, it's like he took whatever the real world result would be of that and just like, okay, can we crank the volume up on this like 100?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What would happen if we were in an alternate universe where science didn't matter, And that's what I liked about it, is that it just was so over the top that you could tell he wasn't trying to do anything else with it,
No, he was having a good time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to see his next project.
I have a monkey that bangs his drum, and then when it's done, someone's going to die. What can I do with that?
Yep.
I'm going to go all out, and I loved it. Absolutely.
It was a good time. Anything else you want to say about the monkey before we sign off here, man?
No, just like, if you're still with us, just know it is a quirky horror comedy that's very bloody.
I'm looking at our friends' ratings on Letterboxd, Brad. Yeah, I've seen some of these, and I was looking it up on Rotten Tomatoes when I asked you earlier. It's like a 79 right now with the critics, and like a 65 with the audience, which is not horrible.
I mean, for a horror movie too, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, my audience ate it up, dude. Like, we were fucking in heaven watching that shit. It was a good time. It's really it's also really a good watch with the crowd. I'll tell you that much. Is fun to see with the crowd.
Yeah, I went to a really late show, and there was only a handful of people in there, so I didn't have I was the one that was reacting more than anybody else.
I'm sure, yeah. And like I said, I love the detachment from Oz Perkins' kind of like resume so far. It's looks similar in certain parts, but it's so different from anything he's done, and I frankly love that. I mean, he doesn't need to do these like horror think pieces every single time. You know what I mean?
How did you think the color grading was in it?
Better than certain films I've seen as of late. I thought it was good. I thought the cinematography was great. Honestly, I mean, it looked really good. The only thing technically I already mentioned was just the CGI blood, which I hate when I hate when I know the movie has the budget and they still do that. That's what I hate. If it's on Tubi, to your point, or it's like some dude that's making his first film with a couple friends of his, I mean, yeah, do what you got to do. You know what I mean? But they could have, if they wanted to really, really like appeal to that Stephen King old school horror crowd that probably knows this story in one way or another, they could have done practical stuff with the blood.
They could have, but I think the CG just made it even more over the top than what it.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. If he was doing that to kind of enhance the over the topness, then maybe that's the case. But it was just obvious to me on the big screen. I was just like, just because I hate when filmmakers do that. If I know they didn't have to do that,
Okay.
I'm right, Brad. Just fucking admit it, okay?
All right.
I'll let Wicked have its moment in the sun. All right, that was our discussion on The Monkey from Oz Perkins. We both recommend it. Brad, I want to thank you for joining me here in the garage to discuss a horror film. With the new format of the show, I'm going to still try to do as much horror as I can. So I'm going to make you do something with me with the Chainsaw Awards when those come around. And
you're in a garage. I'm in a basement.
Let's do it.
In the middle.
We're already in a horror movie, essentially. I mean,
pretty much.
This is the setting for a horror movie. I think this was the plot of, what was it, Host or whatever it came out a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you, man. Brad, plug yourself. That sounded bad, but you know what I mean. Don't plug yourself on air, but plug your show, I should say. Tell them where to find you, man.
Where to find Apple TV Plus.
Yes, find it.
You listen to podcasts, there's like 5 episodes, I think. Something like that. I don't know. No, just search for Old Man Brad. I mostly focus on indie horror. I do interviews with filmmakers, reviews. I have a Tales from Tubi series where I dig through the depths of Tubi to find you those diamonds in the rough. Hopefully, they're not all diamonds at all.
Yeah, diamond's a generous term.
But
cubic zirconium. But yeah, sure.
I have a blast talking all things horror. So it's my jam. Just like Gerald likes horror and awards season. So
which is not a good combo. Does not go well together. At least awards season doesn't think so.
My newest episode is the newest Steamboat Willie horror film, I Heart Willie. So go check that one out.
My God, this guy with the Poonaverse or whatever. Is this your thing?
It's not part of the Poonaverse. It's just another.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I don't
want to disrespect the Poonaverse. I apologize.
It doesn't fit in the Poonaverse. Come on, Gerald.
I know. I should have known better. Brad showed up on. I do my own movie awards, the Golden Peas, and Brad showed up in kind of a secret, a hidden scene like they do at the end of an MCU film. He just kind of popped in there. And you gave out. Tell them what you gave out, because I want to watch that actually. What was the one that won Tubi Movie of the Year or whatever?
I gave top Tubi original for the year for 2024, and the winner was Slay.
And that's what, like a drag queen slasher or something like that?
Yeah, it's like think of drag queen from Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
Like they end up in a bar and they're being attacked and they got to fight them off, through the night.
And it's all drag queens fighting them off.
Yeah.
Or the drag queens or the killer.
Drag queens and the people working at the bar with them, and there's a couple characters that are just hilarious. It
sounds cool. It sounds cool. And when I watched your clip, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to watch that a little bit, because it kind of looked like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, but as a slasher. And it was weird. So I was like, that's a good idea.
Really fun.
That's a good idea.
Go check out Slay.
All right, Brad, old man Brad. We always enhance the O's on that. I really appreciate you being here and filling in this week.
We can thank Nick for that.
Yeah, Nick made it happen as usual on this show. Nick makes things happen around here. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of whatever the hell this is. I think it's the Awards Garage, and we just had our discussion of Oz Perkins the Monkey. I definitely say go check it out, especially if you like horror comedies. I think you will dig it. And that's it for this week. I don't know when I'll be back with a podcast episode. I think we're going to do a movie draft in a couple weeks with a friend of ours. and then some new releases coming down the pike. I'll make sure to get reviews out for them one way or another. So stick around, make sure you subscribe and all that stuff. Brad, thanks again for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.